The sun was setting over the vast Arizona desert, casting long shadows across the dry earth. The wind carried the scent of sagebrush, and the only sound was the rustling of the plants as they swayed gently. The quiet was broken by the distant clip-clop of hooves on dirt, growing louder as a rider approached. Daniel Hayes, the rancher, sat on the porch of his weathered farmhouse, wiping his brow with a rag. His face was weathered, marked by years of hard work and the occasional fight. His eyes, though tired, still held a sharpness that came from years of surviving alone in the desert. A man of few words, he found comfort in the quiet, far away from the world's noise. As he sat there, the soft beat of the horse's hooves drew closer. At first, Daniel thought it was just a stray animal, maybe a deer or wild horse, but when the figure on horseback drew closer, he realized it wasn't an animal, it was a girl. Stumbling off the back of a small, exhausted horse, Daniel stood up, his hand instinctively going to the revolver strapped to his waist, but he didn't draw it. There was something about the girl that made him pause. She was about 16 with wild, dark eyes that looked like they had seen too much. Her clothes were torn and covered in dust, and her face was streaked with dirt and sweat. Her horse had collapsed from exhaustion, and the girl had barely enough strength to stay on her feet. She staggered forward a few more steps, her legs shaking as if she had run for miles. She caught sight of Daniel, and their eyes met. He saw fear in her eyes, fear like nothing he had seen before. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Daniel took a step toward her, his instincts telling him to be cautious. He had lived a long time alone in the desert, and people, especially strangers, were not to be trusted. But the look in her eyes made him hesitate. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice low and steady, though a hint of concern crept through. The girl opened her mouth to speak, but before any words came out, a loud noise echoed through the desert like a soft hum but growing louder. Daniel's eyes darted toward the sound. There were no vehicles in this part of the desert. Nothing that should be making that noise. The girl's eyes widened and she took a few steps back, her hand grabbing Daniel's arm. "Easy, don't move," she whispered urgently. Daniel froze. The sound grew louder, closer. It wasn't just a hum. It was the unmistakable sound of a drone, a machine, cutting through the air. Daniel glanced at the girl. "What is that?" "Don't move," she repeated, her voice shaking. "They'll find us. We have to hide." The drone came closer, its low hum now almost a roar. Daniel could feel the tension in the air, thick and heavy. His gaze followed the girl as she quickly moved to the side of the house, crouching behind a pile of firewood. He moved with her silently, not understanding what was happening but knowing that staying still was the best chance of survival. As they hid behind the wood, Daniel watched as the shadow of the drone swept across the desert. The machine, sleek and black, hovered above the ground, scanning the area. Its sensors seemed to be looking for something or someone. The girl's grip on Daniel's arm tightened, and he realized she wasn't just hiding from a passing vehicle. She was hiding from something far more dangerous. After what seemed like an eternity, the drone finally flew away, its hum fading into the distance. The girl slowly let go of Daniel's arm, her body still tense but her breathing had slowed. "Who are they?" Daniel asked, his voice still steady, though a little softer now. "What do you mean, they'll find us?" The girl looked at him, her face pale but determined. "They're not just searching for me. They're searching for my people. The Apache." Daniel's brow furrowed. "Apache?" "I thought," his words trailed off. He had heard stories of the Apache people, about how they had been pushed into the corners of the land, forced to hide from the government and other forces. But he had never imagined they were being hunted this way. He knew life was hard in the desert, but he hadn't realized how bad it had become for her people. "You're a survivor," the girl continued, her voice steady now, "but they won't stop. They'll keep hunting, keep looking until they get all of us." Daniel didn't understand. "But why? What do they want?" Her eyes flashed with anger, then sadness. "They don't want us. They want what's in our blood. They want to wipe us out." The words didn't make sense, but something about the girl's expression told Daniel that she wasn't lying. Whatever this was, it was bigger than anything he had seen before. "Why me? Why are you here?" Daniel asked, feeling more confused by the second. The girl, who he now realized must have been running for her life, took a deep breath. "They'll find us, and if you help me, we might be able to fight them off for now." I don't know what they've told the world, but they've made it seem like we're the enemy. They're wrong. Daniel didn't know what to say. He had lived his life surviving on this land, keeping to himself and staying out of trouble. But the girl, Miana, as she had introduced herself, was not just asking for help. She was offering him a chance to do something that mattered. We need to move fast, Miana said. We need to get to the old barn. It's the only place where we can hide for now. Daniel nodded, feeling the weight of her words. There was no more time for questions. The drones were out there and they wouldn't stop until they had found her. The two of them moved quickly, silently, crouching low as they made their way to the barn. Daniel's mind raced as they ran. What was happening? Who were these people hunting Miana and her tribe? What did they want with her? As they reached the barn, Miana turned to Daniel. I'm sorry. This is not the life you wanted, but you've just stepped into a bigger fight than you've ever known. Before Daniel could respond, a loud mechanical whine filled the air again. He looked up. Another drone, much closer this time. Daniel's heart raced as the hum of the drone grew louder. The machine was close now, and they had no time to lose. Miana grabbed Daniel's arm again, her grip strong and urgent. Inside now, she whispered fiercely. Without waiting for him to respond, she darted toward the barn. Daniel followed her, the heavy thud of his boots mixing with her quick steps. As they reached the barn, Miana yanked open the door and they slipped inside, taking refuge in the shadowy interior. The barn smelled of hay and old wood, but it was a safe haven for now. Miana crouched low to the ground, motioning for Daniel to do the same. Stay down, she said, her voice sharp with tension. She glanced toward the small slit in the barn door where they could see the faint glow of the drone's lights in the distance. They're getting closer. If we're quiet, maybe they won't find us. Daniel nodded, his senses on high alert. He had lived through battles and skirmishes before, but this was something new. He could see the fear in Miana's eyes, and it gave him a strange sense of determination. She wasn't just a girl running from danger. She was a symbol of something bigger, something worth protecting. Minutes passed, each one feeling like an eternity. The hum of the drone grew louder until it seemed to surround them. Miana pressed her fingers to her lips, signaling for Daniel to remain silent. The drone hovered just outside the barn, its sleek black form casting a shadow against the dimming light. Daniel's breath caught in his throat as he watched the machine's sensors sweep across the area. It was looking for something or someone. His mind raced. What kind of technology was this? How could they have drones like these in the middle of the desert? And why were they hunting Miana and her people? The drone lingered for what felt like hours, its low hum vibrating through the walls of the barn. Then, just as it seemed to be moving away, a faint beeping sound came from inside the barn. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. Miana's eyes widened as she pulled a small glowing device from her pocket. It was a tracker, a tool she had hidden on her person in case of an emergency. The beeping was a signal. The drone had picked up its target. Damn it, Miana muttered under her breath. They found us! Before Daniel could react, Miana sprang into action. She grabbed a nearby pitchfork and handed it to him. We fight now. I'll handle the machines. You just watch your back. Daniel's mind was spinning, but he didn't have time to think. The fear in Miana's voice told him that this was real. The drones were no longer just watching. They were coming to capture or destroy. And they wouldn't stop until they had found her. We have to distract them, Miana said, her voice low but steady. I'll draw them in. You find a way to disable their systems. Daniel stared at her, not fully understanding what she meant. What do you need me to do? Miana's eyes locked onto his, her expression determined. There's a control panel near the old windmill. If you can reach it, you might be able to jam their signals. Daniel didn't hesitate. He had no choice but to trust her. The drone's hum grew louder again, and Miana turned toward the door. I'll keep it busy. Go now. With a nod, Daniel sprinted toward the barn's back exit. He moved quickly, knowing that the longer he waited, the worse it would get. As he emerged into the open desert, he looked toward the windmill, barely visible against the fading light. It was a long run, but he didn't have time to second-guess himself. Behind him, he heard the unmistakable sound of the drone's engines growing louder. The machine was moving, closing in on the barn, and Miana's distraction wouldn't last forever. Daniel pushed himself harder, his legs burning with every step. He could hear the drones whirring, now unmistakably close. He didn't dare look back. If he did, he might lose his focus. The windmill came into view, its creaky blades turning slowly in the breeze. The control panel was just inside a small shack at its base. Daniel reached it in no time, his fingers fumbling for the old rusted door. He yanked it open and entered, feeling a strange sense of urgency. The shack was dark, but he could see the glow of the control panel in the corner. Daniel wasted no time. He pressed buttons randomly, hoping to trigger some kind of signal jamming. The drone's hum was now deafening, and he could feel the machine's presence almost as if it were breathing down his neck. Suddenly, there was a loud screech, followed by a burst of static. Daniel's heart pounded. He didn't know if it had worked, but the signal had been disrupted. Outside, Miana was still fighting. Daniel could hear her shouting, urging the drone to follow her. She was leading it away from the barn, away from him. But Daniel knew this wasn't over. The drones were relentless. They would send more if they couldn't stop the ones already searching. And Miana's tribe wasn't safe. Not yet. Daniel took a deep breath and stepped outside the shack, glancing back at the barn. The drone had followed Miana, its spotlight fixed on her. She was running, but she was fast, and she seemed to know exactly where she was going. He had to get back to her. The signal jam might have given them a temporary advantage, but it wouldn't last forever. As he sprinted back toward the barn, he could see Miana now, her silhouette moving quickly against the night sky. She was heading toward the cliffs, her only escape route. The drones wouldn't be able to follow her there, at least not without risk. But as Daniel reached the barn, he heard another sound. A low hum, different from the drones. This was bigger, more powerful. More of them, Miana muttered as she appeared at the barn entrance, breathless and panicked. They're sending a team. Daniel's eyes widened. What do we do now? Miana's face was grim, but there was fire in her eyes. We fight. This is only the beginning. They won't stop. They'll keep hunting until we're all gone. Daniel stood tall, gripping the pitchfork in his hand. He had no idea what he was getting into, but one thing was clear. He wasn't going to let Miana face this alone. Together, they turned to face the horizon, where the next wave of danger was already coming. But this time Daniel was ready. He had a new purpose now, to protect Miana, to protect her people, and to stop the machines from taking everything. And as the first lights of the new threat appeared on the horizon, Daniel knew this was only the start of something much bigger. The real fight had just begun.